everybody, it is Romania Black, and we are on episode 20 of Orb on the Movements of the Earth. And I don't like being on episode 20 because that means we're one episode closer to the end of the series or into the season. I don't know. I feel like it's going to be into the series because I have a feeling someone somewhere has said something, or the manga's not that long, because I don't know. I have no clue what to expect with these last 6 episodes, but we're going to dive into them and find out. So I really quick want to talk about a couple of comments before we get started. These are all, 2 of them are for episode 17. One is for episode 18. Tasto 3204 for episode 17 says, with Draka saying that the book is provocative and that there's basically no other books that are not religious or scientific in nature, I can just imagine Bodini's thoughts when he first read it. Probably something like, what the hell is this? Why would he spend so long on this crap? Damn it, I need to make everyone read this now! I love it. I love it. The Bodini and Aksha ship transcends all bonds. Honestly, I think it's M in the Discord, has been sharing in the stage play, which I desperately want to see the stage play just on my own time, watch it my own time. That's all I really want to do. Is that in apparently the hanging scene with Bodini and Aksha, Bodini's actor cried, and I was like, what? What? I need to see this. So hopefully I get a chance to see it at some point. Hopefully that happens and that works out. But then we'll have to see. But I want to see it so badly. I'm so down the Aksha and Bodini rabbit hole. Y'all don't even know. So then Mikala 048785 for episode 17 says, I loved this episode introducing my Draka, my capitalist queen. It is interesting seeing a character like her in this setting because I like how focused and smart she is during a time where women weren't taken as seriously. I wish her and Bodini could have interacted together. I love listening to your analysis. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, there's so many characters like Schmidt and Draka I want to see have conversations with Bodini and Aksha, and it's just, it's so sad that those characters don't get to have those conversations. It's so sad, y'all. Makes me very sad. Finally, Deep Raj for episode 18 says, the relevance of the dialogues in Orb will exist till no humans are alive because truth in motion does not perish with its witnesses. Love that line. Like the earth, it dares to move. Orb circles time itself, whispering defiance against fear, dogma, and stillness. Even when humanity falls silent, the orb of thought is set in motion. It will continue its revolution through the void. While writing this, I feel reformed like the conversations in this episode. Right? This series just gets me fired up. This series gets me fired up, y'all. And I agree. I love the idea of just of the earth, like the orb, being these dialogues that will keep coming back around. Even when humanity falls silent, the orb of thought is set in motion and will continue its revolution. That's what we want to hear. That's what I love, y'all. I'm all about that. Yes, please. So anyway, thank you all for your kind words and your comments. I really appreciate them. Before we start, real quick, I want to give a shout out because we have a couple new members to our philanthropy tier over on Patreon. If you would like, you can check out my Patreon, see all the tiers, see what becoming a member looks like. The philanthropy tier gets an extra shout out in my videos, at least 1 or 2 a week. And so they donate a little bit extra each month because they're awesome people. And I really appreciate and am grateful for all the support that they and everyone else on Patreon gives my channel. You all are real ones. So let's thank Alex Cornejo, Be Happy, Damage 3245, Dana, Devorin, Daniel, Destiny Marie, Ichu, Eric, Fisho, Ghostly Turnip, L. Freya, as well as Lyndon, Murphy, Willie Morris, Translucent Min, Sunspots, Shimoyama, we got some new ones on here, James, Diana Williams, Nicholas, Sean, Jason N, Rose Jennison, CATA, and Rast. Thank you all so much for your support. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. Anyway, so that's where we're at. I'm super excited, y'all, but we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to dive into episode 20 of Orb on the Movements of the Earth. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And let's do it to it. What a wild episode, and I'm kind of mad about it. Oh, that is, they were right there. She was right there. Novak, your daughter was right there. Your daughter was right there. And it seemed like for a brief moment, maybe he thought it was her, but I needed them to get together. I needed them to meet. I needed them to have a discussion. I needed that to happen. And it did not at all, because she thought he was dead already and she didn't see the point in it. And I'm so mad. I need Novak to just punch Antony, and I need him to realize that Antony lied to him and it led to all this. And my only hope now, the only way that Novak will know that that was his daughter is if Draka's the only one, because I can't see Schmidt doing it. I can't see Schmidt or Liba, whatever his face is, or Frey. I can't see any of them being like our leader, Yolenta. I can't see them using her name. And so the only way Novak, I feel, is going to find out that it was Yolenta is if either Draka tells him at some point and he puts two and two together, or if the letter that Yolenta is wanting Draka to send is going to end up back at Novak. Like her letter originally went to Novak, if he ends up with her letter at the end. If he confiscates the letter and it doesn't get sent to Pataki or whatever and he ends up with it. If one of those things happens, then he'll find out. And I just need him to beat the snot out of Antony, but I don't think it's going to happen. Because this series does not care about your neat little nicely wrapped bow-ended narratives. It's like, no, that's not how the real world works. And I'm like, it's so frustrating. I'm like, how dare it? So I want to talk about this episode. Bring Whiteboard Coon out. The moment that Yolenta started giving everything away, I'm like, girl does not think that she is going to make it past this. And the thing that's kind of the saddest part about it is that she had premeditated, her and Schmidt and the others had talked about this, and she had made, it was part of their plan. They're like, okay, well, we have to convince the Reformation that we're, trustworthy and willing to work with them and meet their demands and prove ourselves to them. And the best way to do that is if one of us, if our leader kind of, like Draka said, sure, you could forge it, you could fake it, but somebody would have had to die, right? And I guess that kind of goes back to Antony. Antony was willing to forge a death. He was very eager to do it. But I kind of, Yolenta's better than Antony in the sense that she wasn't going to just fake it. What a badass mofo. Yolenta's just so badass. She went out in a blaze of glory, that woman. So they have tools where you can recreate any letters that break, and they go through that. And then she believes Draka. Now, Schmidt asks if they kill Draka. Schmidt is pretty, without emotion. Schmidt is just like, what has to be done is done. You can see the other guys are kind of like, they're not as, even the one guy, the Liba, whatever his face is, Liba man, I'm going to call him Liba man. He is not really on board. He is, I think, the most emotional of the three. I think Frey is kind of in the middle, and then Schmidt is just like, emotions, what are those? I, Robot Man, because of his trauma that he had as a kid. And honestly, a lot of that goes back to Schmidt. Human emotions caused his parents to be killed, and for him nearly to be killed. So it makes all the sense for Schmidt to abandon those human emotions because he knows what they can lead to. He knows what they can do. So it makes sense when he asks Yolenta if they need to kill Draka, and she's like, no. She's like, I thought about that, but I did promise her the printing press. She did do me a solid by remembering the book. So we gotta go through and let her have this. So, but damn. So yeah. And then what's interesting is I like her adding on this where she says people like her deserve a chance. And we see Colby taking the credit for her work, and we see the one guy offering her a chance, but then her getting dismissed. So Yolenta knows what it's like to not be given that opportunity. And so she's using this moment to give that opportunity to Draka, which is crazy. I love it. God, I love it. I'm so sad. And when she was sitting there being like, you're willing to do all this for a book. And she looks back and sees Bodini and Aksha saying, enabling this book. No, enabling books of all kinds to be published is what I've dreamed of. Because, yeah, that was her goal from the start. She wanted to get her treatise published, and she wanted to be recognized. And her inquisitiveness whenever they posted the question and she answered it and they accepted her, and just... I guess she's with him now, but then he would just like smack her upside the face and be like, why'd you do that for, Yolenta? And Ox should be like, why'd you do that for, Yolenta? Just, I guess they're all together now, and Raffle's like, I'm here too. So, okay, this episode, I love heliocentrism. There is like a thin, like, cynical glaze over this episode, like a sheen of some... Yolenta's monologue at the end of this episode is maybe one of my favorite monologues in the whole series. I freaking love it. But there is this like gloss of kind of cynicalness over this all. So they found, I like that old Flock here, what's his face? Ash has found the barn, and Novak's like, really? I want Novak to get a little bit of fire in him before he dies. I want Novak's character, before we see the last of him, to have a little bit of fire. Because Novak is so dead inside right now. Like, he doesn't care. Ever since his daughter has supposedly died in his eyes, he hasn't had any will to live or do. He's just running through the motions. Just running through the motions. And his whole thing against Raffle and all this, that he deems as the responsible one for everything, is the only thing that spite keeps him going. But I just need that fire to get ignited in him. That OP shows that fire ignited in him. I need it ignited one more time. I just need it ignited against Antony. I doubt that's going to happen, and I'm so mad about it. I can't believe that she... Frustrating. So one thing that's kind of cool about the symbolism in this episode is we see the Liba guy. He's in the shadows of the barn. Again, we've established that light is an area or a symbolic aspect that allows for truths and knowledge to be shared. And so with him in the shadow of the barn, he doesn't want Schmidt to know his thoughts about religion. And so that's why it symbolically is showing him in the shadows, which is such a cool little twist. I like that. So he gives Draka the bread, though, talking about, supplies from town. And I like that we get this short, like, little moment of him, this sudden backstory, which does not bode well for next episode. I'm honestly dreading it. We've only got 5 episodes left. I'm like, I just need them to get this book published. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but I just need it. So, but yeah, it's like, why have you thrown away your place in heaven doing all of this? And he said that basically the reason is so that he can accept death. And I liked his story about the sister, and that he wanted to tell her all of these things, but he didn't get the chance to, and the question of why was I born? And so what he wanted to tell her, and I guess we might as well put this up here, we're going to put L guy. His whole thing brings up the question of why was I born? Yolenta kind of answers that question in a more robust way later on, but his whole thing was, he said it was so she could ascend to heaven. And he's like, God and religion exist to answer that question. So he puts it here that God and religion answers that question, is essentially what he tells her in that moment there. He's like, she died before I could say anything. So ever since that day, I thought about what I would need to confidently say that it's on God's behalf. He's like, at the very least, it's not God who persecutes the heretics. So we're going to put this down here. It's not God that is persecuting. It's humans. That old jazz. We've talked about that all season, but it's so frustrating. He's like, if nobody else is going to say it, I'm going to say it. If I don't, I'll never be able to tell my sister that it's on behalf of God. He's like, I like that he establishes, he's like, if I'm going to lead and be good by my own conscience, I have to go through and do this. Otherwise, I can't die feeling like I can give my sister the appropriate answer. He's like, I can't run away from saying what that answer is like I did when she was dying. And then he talks about how religion is important. And I do like his sentiments a lot in this episode. I like what he says. He's like, I wouldn't say this in front of Schmidt, because here's the thing. You have to like Schmidt, kind of like Bodini. You have to like Schmidt, the fact that he is so solid with his convictions. I don't agree with a lot of what Schmidt says, but he's so solid and just very sure of himself that you're just like, okay, respect. I respect you. I don't agree with you, but I respect you. He's like, without religions, we can never be this strong. He's like, and it's crazy to think that on the other side of the world, there's someone else who believes in the same God. So he talks about how it strengthens and connects people. And I wouldn't disagree with that. I think that religion it's a way to build community with people. It's a way to connect with people. It's a way to find comfort. Spirituality for me gives me a comfort. It gives me a sense of belonging. It gives me a sense of like purpose. And I like that. I know some people don't have the same reactions. It's fine. But there is a connection to it. And people that are more like, I guess, denominationally Christian, find connections that way, like Catholics, like Protestants, like, you find connection through people that share the same beliefs. It's kind of like anything. You find connection through people that share like-minded ideas. I mean, that's just humans crave connection. And when you find people that share the same kind of core values as you, then yeah, you feel like a sense of belonging and a feel of purpose and connectivity with the world. And so I do think that he brings up some really good points with it. He says, but even so, a long time has passed since the church was founded, and that it's inevitable that rot sets in. I love that he says that any long-standing entity will rot and change. That's true of anything. That's true of any type of, that's true of a monarch. I mean, look at the royal monarchies throughout history. True. Any empire throughout history. True. Any set of organized anything. Even if it's great, eventually it will need to change. You can't keep stagnant on something without adapting and changing, or it will decay and rot. And that's just the truth of anything. Nothing is infallible or eternal. That is of this earth, that is man-made, man-constructed, nothing of it is. And Schmidt kind of talks about that too. But yeah, he's like, eventually you have to change. And he's like, we're kind of at this turning point in the story where you can hear the years of change grinding everywhere. We're in a period of transition. It's kind of wild. He's like, I have to see my mission and carry it out. And I have faith that doing this will allow me to accept my sister's death. I don't want to shirk it. I want to affirm it. I love it. That is my life's theme. I love the idea of having a life's theme. I love that idea. His speech was really empowering. I liked the idea of this is his conviction. This is what he's going for. Why he believes the things that he does. It was really moving. I loved that. And so it has Draka thinking. And then we see, don't mind old Schmidt grinding to the whetstone. She's like, don't you despise technology? And he's like, I merely use technology to overcome technology. Nobody makes me bleed my own blood. Nobody. Thinking of Dodgeball. What I like about Schmidt, other than the fact that he's probably would be Mennonite if this was a modern AU. He'd probably be Mennonite. Would be just the idea of him. He's just so sure of himself. Schmidt's like, no. He's like, I got this. And she's like, what makes you hate man-made things so much? And he says, at the place of my birth, people killed one another over their interpretation of God. We get the confirmation that Schmidt is the kid from the flashback and why this impacts his psyche and his entire well-being so much. Because he saw how shitty people could be and was like, I don't want to be a part of that. The problem must be dealt with at its roots. If all these disasters are the result of man-made things, man-made society, man-made rules, a man-made God. I like Draka's just looking at him like, oh man. One thing that I love about this entire scene with Draka and Schmidt is that one, she keeps the grindstone going. Even if he says something she doesn't agree with, she keeps the grindstone going. She helps him. Their entire dialogue in this moment is emblematic of the problems that we have conversing amongst each other about things we don't agree on. It literally is emblematic of that. Because one, he's trying to get a goal accomplished. She helps him with the goal and hears him out. She listens, which we have a hard time, I feel like, in modern day society with listening. We just immediately want to respond. And I catch myself doing it all the time. He says, the things humans make can only be ugly imitations. So he quotes Plato. which, God, it's been a long time since I've had a rhetoric class, where he's like, humans make imitations of nature, right? They make imitations of nature that are ugly, according to him. And he talks about from there that looking at the vastness of nature makes that clear. And sure, from his perspective in this moment, yeah, nature, like the sky, the trees, everything, like how can you make something that beautiful? Like humans aren't capable of creating an environment that looks that amazing. He's like, we are no match. And so that's when he talks about humans can't make something from nothing. So he points that out too. He says humans always derive from something. Which, to be fair, nature does that as well. Nature derives from itself. When they borrow the power of nature, he says they make carriages, crossbows, and explosions. Nothing but ugly weapons. According to Plato, imitations humans make are forms of play. So he says they're forms of play and they're just weapons. He says they're not contributing. Basically not creating, but just things that destroy. And you know what? And in that moment, he's like, they can't be taken seriously. Only God's creations are real. Our technology reflects an understanding of nature as a meaningless conceit. I don't believe in human intellect, but this will do. And what's interesting is that there's kind of an irony there as he's grinding the blade that he has using a technology that humans made from nature, that if you tried to you could probably grind that stone by scraping it across you could probably grind that sword by scraping it across a stone over and over and over again. But the technology that you just utilized was something man-made that made that more efficient and done better. And that's kind of what Draka's getting at. But what I love for this is as Draka turns to walk away, she hears her uncle say, think. That process is where truth lies. So the idea of think, that is where truth lies. What I love about this moment is how, like I said, emblematic it is, because she goes to walk away and then she turns around and says, no. She was like, Aristotle said that technology is an imitation of nature as well. But he also added that he also said this. I love she turns around and says technology in some cases completes what nature cannot finish. So with Aristotle, she talks about how technology sometimes completes what nature cannot finish. Yeah. I mean, not always. I feel like the modern technology we have does more harm than good. The interesting, this is completely superfluous as an example, but the first thing I thought of was Hydrox. Do you know Hydrox? Sounds like a chemical, right? No. Hydrox are the original Oreos. They're made back in the early 20th century. They were called Hydrox. They're basically Oreos. That was the original brand. You can imagine why they weren't as successful as a marketing brand, because their name were Hydrox, which sounds like something you'd put in a washing machine. But yeah, they were the original little black cookie that has the chocolate and cocoa in it. And then Nabisco came in and was like, oh, we could redo that and just make them Oreos and make them a little bit better. And so that's kind of what they ended up doing. And then people were like, oh, these Oreos are much better than the Hydrox. And it's just bye. It's not a perfect metaphor, but I like Draka saying yes, we could just leave it all to chance, but it's kind of like the vaccine conversation we had a few episodes ago, where she's like, sure, we could just eat weeds and herbs, but also science has enabled us to know what to do with those herbs to enhance them even more and make them more potent and powerful and more effective. And so it's not perfect, but you can't just ignore the fact that knowledge exists. We need to do something with that knowledge, and to ignore it exists is what are we doing as people then? So I love that conversation. But my favorite part about this is that she turns and confronts him and says, well, no, what about this? And they both hear each other out, right? They listen to each other. She's like, this fabric and these bloodstained coins are my father's. When I look at them, I remember my conviction. but these things didn't grow naturally. They're made by human hands, but that doesn't make them worthless and without meaning. She's like, this is still like they're imitations made by humans, but they're still important. And the thing that I love about this scene as well is at the end of the day, is Schmidt's mind changed? No. Is Draka's mind changed? No. But they both learn a little bit more about the other side and why that person thinks that way. And I think there just needs to be more of that. I mean, there's obviously limits. If somebody ends up becoming a bigot and they're trying to argue with you, like, do you have to accept their bigoted ideas? No, not at all. But the stuff that Schmidt and Draka are arguing about are things that don't involve necessarily like harming people. They're just talking about philosophical ideas. And I think those are good things you can have conversations about and agree to disagree about without it involving people being harmed. So we need more of that. We need more of that in this world. More conversations like Draka and Schmidt's, because that was amazing. I loved that. So then we have this scene where Yolenta, she's doing one more survey of the sky. The thing that's so sad about it is that she's like, I don't know the exact time, so what I'm doing isn't really helpful, but it's like she wants to do it because that was given to her or she got a hold of it and so she's like, I came to say goodbye. And she's like, well, that's polite of you. And I like that she's like, do you have a motive? And she's like, well, I would like that little coat. And she's like, oh, you can have it. So then she gives her the little vial, and the vial has a letter in it. And she says, when the book is distributed and published, mail that letter for me. It's an obligation to my predecessors. Now, do I know what's in this letter? No. Is this a letter that Bodini and Aksha had set for her? I don't know. Is it a letter that Raffle had? I don't know. I'm not sure. But she gives it to her to take it. It was written in the book that you relayed to me. She's like, now, I don't think there are going to be any prophets, but if we do, it basically says it's for Pataki, but I don't know. They said Pataki was dead, so will the letter end up in Novak's? Here's the thing. It could end up in Novak's hands because the letter was supposed to be for Pataki. Pataki doesn't exist anymore. They established that. He died. So Novak could have the letter intercepted and then realize that Yolenta was the leader. We'll see. And she's like, oh, is there a hassle? And she's like, that's not what I mean. She's like, why can you trust me with this? And she's like, I have nothing to do with your past. And she's like, that's because you're young. You're young. And I like that she said you're protagonists of the future. I mean, she trusts Draka just like Bodini and Aksha trusted her. I love it. And she says, why are people concerned with memory? Why do we interpret individual phenomena according to a linear time? I mean, if you view it as a nonlinear history, it's a little bit different. But yeah, her monologue here in this episode is so good. Why do our minds compel us to look into history? So she goes into this monologue saying, in other words, history is an extension of God's will. So we have this monologue. I love it. History, an extension of God's will. Those who do not learn history are doomed to repeat it, right? Trying to give you some things. I love it. Good thing. God causes all things to work together for good. I love her thing here where she's like, God is changing the world through human acts. The present moment exists with a great current. I love it. It lies within the plan, within trial and error. This line here, it is our job. It is to participate in the dull, endless task. The dull and endless task of crawling towards good. That is such a good line. God. Yeah, it's like being kind is not easy. Being kind can get you yelled at. Being kind can get you like made fun of. Being kind can get you persecuted. And being kind isn't glamorous. Being kind, if you notice online, a lot of it's like rage bait. People will watch rage bait because humans are kind of fascinated by morbid things. We're fascinated by gross things, right? It's like a car crash you can't look away from, right? But being nice is often easy to ignore. And usually it's a thankless job. But it's so worth it. I love the idea that she says, by accepting and confronting evil rather than casting it aside. So you have to confront evil. You don't run away from it. You confront it rather than casting it aside. We give birth to a greater good. Yes. We set that example. And I love her idea of saying that good and evil are not on different paths. They're connected by a single thread. I love that idea. Good and evil are connected. I mean, look at her and her father. Look at that. And everything above it. Ugh. Yep. None of my past hardships were meaningless. Without history, we lose sight of that, of the finite nature of life, which is equivalent to ascertaining that where God is guiding us. That's why we ignore the past. Awareness of history influences my decisions. My father was an inquisitor. And so she finally touches base on her dad being an inquisitor and how it influences her. Now, she says that they are very opposite. And I'm like, ooh, I don't know if you're entirely opposite. And she doesn't know if he was alive. And she's looking at her hands while she's having this whole monologue, which is, again, her hands, the gloves. She's like, I doubt I'll see him again. But if I were to confront my father as I am now, what would happen? I don't have to think much to know it would be the worst moment of my life. Well, the worst moment of her life happens. Because she does confront her father, even if she doesn't realize it. But in that moment, most of all, where I have to make the right decision, all the misfortunes of my life have existed for the sake of that moment. And I'll calm my nerves, crush my fears, guide my thoughts, and it'll stop me from running away. Which she doesn't run away. To Yolenta's credit, she does not run away in that moment. She could have been cowering in fear, but no. And we get all these moments. And she says, all the winds of human history will be at my back. And of course, anytime something crazy and epic is about to happen in this series, the stars come out and they're all shining. The shot of her against that night sky. Oh, it was so good. And Draka's like, you're doing it for the sake of this book. And she's like, because I love heliocentrism. And because I want to celebrate that love. It's so wild. Yep. All for the sake of heliocentrism. The sad thing is, like, that love could be for her father too, but there's so much. There's so much going into this. It's so sad. She's like, you have to overcome it. So then their night's coming, and she reveals that she had planned to be a martyr. When Schmidt and all of them just let her go, I was kind of like, wow, that is really heartless. But then we find out that they've planned this all from the beginning. So they knew that she was going to sacrifice herself. So they were kind of okay with it. And that made a lot more sense afterwards. But poor Draka. Draka's like, what do you mean you're sacrificing yourself? And I do give respect to Schmidt and them because Yolenta made this choice. She's like, this is my decision. I made it. I made my bed. And I'm going to lie in it. So let me have this. And I like that Schmidt and them respected her and her decision. But poor Draka. That shot of the night sky and it's just like on fire. Like it almost looks like the night sky almost looks like the smoke from the explosions in that moment. Yolenta's monologue is just so good. I love it's just the idea of keep doing good. Keep trying to do good no matter what you do. And honestly, I think Yolenta just was tired. She was like ready to let go and she didn't think her father was alive. All she wanted to do, like, it's kind of the idea. I watched Millennium Actress for the first time last month. And so I think of that movie, but it's the idea of it, like, it's not the destination, it's the journey. That book kept her motivated. I think Yolenta would have gave up a long time ago. I think Yolenta may have gave up a long time ago or felt defeated because of all the misfortunes that happened to her. But that pursuit to get that book kept her going and kept her alive. And now that she'd found it and now that it's all done, she's like, okay, I did the thing. Now it's my time to become part of history. I hate that she martyred herself because I didn't want that to happen. The moment she started carrying those bags out of the house, I'm like, damn it, those are gonna be gunpowder or something. I was so mad. But I thought maybe honestly Novak would recognize her, and then as he's recognizing her, that's when she blows up. And it's kind of what happens, but it wasn't enough of recognition in that last moment. I'm like, and him holding, in one hand, he's holding her gloves. That he's holding her severed hand at the end of this. In one hand, he has her gloves, and he's gonna have her severed hand that he doesn't even realize is hers. Freaking morbid as hell in one hand, and in the other hand, he has the necklace from Raffle, and I'm like, damn it. And it just like his conviction, he's like, I'll avenge you. I'm like, you'll avenge her. That's the one thing I want, is that Novak keeps saying he's going to avenge her, but everything that he's involved in is doing the opposite of that. I need Novak to know it was her, and I need him to know she was the leader of it, and I need him to get back at Antony, and I don't think that's going to happen in this series, and I'm so sad about it. I keep holding out hope, but I don't want to be let down, so I'm like, I just want somebody to punch Antony. Is that so hard? Is that so hard to want? I want it to be Novak, but I'm like, he says he's going to avenge her, but like, and then it must be their leader. Also, you know what? Now that she's like, of course she's far enough away that you can't quite see her. Whenever they're like prepare to fire and he steps out and then she looks at the sky, and sees in that moment all these moments of him and her, and then with Colby, and then the moments with Aksha and Bodini and all of that. I'm like, Novak, your daughter is right there in front of you, imagining all these moments, and Yolenta, he's right there in front of you. I'm like, damn it. And in that moment, before she, like, as she lowers the torch, where you can't see her face as well, she looks up to him, and he opens his eyes and looks to her. But Novak does not have any light in his eyes left. And he stares in that moment, and that's when she drops it, and there's the explosion. Oh, girl. And then her hand just flies off. Damn. And Ash is like, oh my god, she blew herself up. I don't think Ash thought she was going to do it. But you know what? That blowing up was pretty instantaneous. Getting fired by 6 crossbows would have sucked real bad. So if those were my options and they were going to fire at her without... My thing is, they didn't even take her into custody. They didn't even take her into custody to like, question her. That was one thing I kept thinking. I'm like, okay, they're going to take her into custody. They're going to question her. Novak's going to realize it's Yolenta. Ash was like, question her. No, I'm like, what happened to all the torture stuff you were doing 2 episodes ago? Like, I was like, I need you to do that. And like, no, they were just going to kill her. I guess because she was the leader of the front, they didn't really, if it's like cut off the head of the snake and the rest of the snake dies sort of situation. But she's already made Schmidt the new leader, so. And yeah, the explosives. One of the things that's going to change the world. And Ash is like, what does this mean? And he said, for a brief second. The fact that he picks up his daughter's severed hand and holds it. He's like, no, I can't wrap my head around it. But this new technology that was just used. Their leader is dead. The fact that he's holding his daughter's hand the way she used to hold his hand as a kid. Oh my gosh, series, why would you break my heart into 1,000 pieces? Why would you do that? I don't feel like crying in this episode because I'm horribly sad that Yolenta, that scene of him holding her hand is heartbreaking. That is so frustrating and maddening. I think because I knew from last episode going into this one that she's like, I'm gonna not make it past this, and you're like, okay, she's gonna be a martyr, but the fact that he was right there, they could have made a connection, and then that's so crazy. I cannot believe that. And then Draka puts the letter away. I'm glad Schmidt doesn't ask about the letter. I guess he trusts her with that. but then they reveal that she planned all of this out. I don't know what Frey was doing with the typefaces there when he's looking at it. I'm curious to know what he's planning with that. I don't know if I trust Frey. I don't fully trust him for some reason. He's kind of, we don't know anything about him. I don't want to think he's shady, but he kind of is. I don't know. I don't know if I trust him or not. And of course, the moment those guys rode by, I was like, the moment those guys rode by, I'm like, they're going to stop them. We all know that they are. Now, Schmidt is like, when the important thing is where and when you die. Everything else is like, there's no time for sympathy or for human feelings, which fits Schmidt because that's how he grew up, where he saw how human emotions were so dangerous. And so of course he'd want to abandon them now. But we know from Liebe and them it's not how this works. Not all of us can be robots like Schmidt is. So, oh my God. I can't believe, I figured Yolenta was going to die, but what a way to go out like a boss. She just went out like a boss. She was like, I'm so frustrated that Novak didn't realize or didn't have the opportunity to realize it was really her. I swear if he finds out that he was holding his dead daughter's severed hand in his, I want him to just punch Antony. But at this point, we have 5 episodes left, and I don't think that's going to happen. And I just need to just steel myself that that's not going to happen. And we've not even met the kid that's in the OP with the monk or whatever. Is that going to end up being Schmidt and Draka's kid? Probably not. It's probably going to be some rando like in the last episode that we just randomly meet. I don't know. There's an image of Draka and Schmidt both riding on horses in the OP, and I don't know if that's going to go down next episode. Like if they kill the 2 knights here and take their horses, that could happen. That could happen and lead to the shot in the OP. I don't know. What I do know is that this episode was so good. This episode was so good. I loved it so much, and I cannot wait to hear your thoughts on Yolenta's monologue, on Schmidt's monologue, on Liebe what's-his-face's monologue. There's a lot of monologues to like break down and go through this, which was really fun. If I have to like look up, so Aristotle versus Plato on humans and nature. There's like a whole book about nature and all this. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Yeah. I mean, the two had 2 thoughts about human mind and human thought and what truth is, which you could have there's a whole class on it, right? I mean, you get Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle on human nature and morality. There's like books and books and books written upon it. There's a lot to go through, but essentially, if we're going to go through some of this, like this one was talking about how Socrates believed that virtue is attained through human relationships, such as family, friends, love, and happiness. He concluded that being a good ethical citizen required having to communicate with others rather than solitary contemplation. Plato, along with Socrates, believed that virtue and happiness can be achieved through knowledge, but Plato added knowledge can only be obtained through reasoning and intellect. Which is funny that Schmidt is quoting Plato, because I'm like, Plato is kind of about humans gaining intellect, and you're kind of against it. So that's interesting that you're quoting him. He had the theory of forms, which include logical, metaphysical, epistemological, and moral, suggesting that words, or proper names and pronouns, refer to a single form. When we hear the word dog, we think of every and any dog that exists because there is only one true form or essence that forms them all. And so he talked about that, right? Plato's belief on social aspect of human nature, he came to the conclusion that every human is not self-sufficient. We need others, and we definitely benefit from our social interactions, leading to a more open mind. Humans feed off of each other's thoughts, talents, relationships, and attitudes. Which that part does relate to Schmidt in 2 areas. One, because Schmidt talks about how they just take. Humans take from nature, they take from each other, they don't create something out of nothing. But it also ties into why Schmidt is all about getting with the Reformation and creating that alliance, because he's like, well, we can't do it on our own, so we need help from them. So that all ties into what Schmidt is thinking. But then you get into Aristotle, and Aristotle believed happiness is the highest human good, which is in accordance with virtue. He used the Greek word eudaimonia, which translates to human flourishing or prospering or prosperity, and he believed happiness could be achieved by virtue and defined it as a nature to act in the right manner. I would say Yolenta would kind of go along with Aristotle a bit, that it's achieved through experiences, habit, and reason. Although Plato was his teacher, Aristotle did not agree with some of his philosophical theories, and Plato was an idealist, looking at something in an ideal form, and Aristotle believed in looking at the real world and studying it, which again is funny because Schmidt is not ideal. Schmidt is pretty much like rooted in this reality. So again, when Schmidt quotes Plato all the time, I'm like, but you really, Drock is bringing up Aristotle. Why are you not on Aristotle's board as well? So that's interesting. But yeah, it's so good. You know what? It's been a long time since I had rhetoric class, but talking about Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, then you get Sappho in there, and she's just writing lesbian poetry. And we're all like, okay, so I just love it. But this series gets me thinking. I want to go back and take another rhetoric course after watching this series. But anyway, I'm excited to hear your thoughts down below. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care. And yeah, I'll be back very soon with episode, God, I can't believe I'm saying this, 21 of ORB on the movements of the earth. And I'll see you then. Bye.